Aren't we very beautiful? Oh, where's this other guy? Are you doing some sort of an operation? Or? Yes. Hello urban farmers and welcome to another episode. Now in this particular episode I am in Serbia. I'm actually at my cousin's house. Now what they have is a lot of bees and they make and sell honey. I don't know if you can see, but there are bees absolutely everywhere. I'm not going to be too close. Do not feel like getting stung today. But what you see behind me, and I'll walk you through how that sort of looks like, but that's basically a container that they use to put all the boxes, all the hives in. And what they do is they actually move these boxes from field to field depending on the type of crop that they're targeting these bees at, sort of the bees being at. And so exactly what happens is that they sell honey from, let's say, different types of plants, and every different plant, obviously, wherever they leave this structure at, the bees will sort of congregate around that particular plant. In this particular field, we have sunflowers, so you'll see quite a lot of sunflowers over there, and then there's those yellow fields that you see at the back. They're all sunflowers, and for the next 2 weeks or so the bees are going to be here, and the bees are going to be collecting basically the sunflower. They're going to be making sunflower honey. Today we're actually collecting pollen. A lot of you are going to be allergic to pollen. Basically you're going to have a lot of hay fever and all that sort of hay fever and all that sort of stuff. But today we're collecting pollen because pollen is actually used for a lot of health benefits. And if you do have a beehive, I'll show you how you can collect pollen for yourself. My cousin, who's just running away, she's actually quite allergic to these bees. I suppose she does love bees, but yeah, she's just a little bit allergic. None of us really like to get stung though. So do you know what the so what do they make out of pollen? We'll move to some better light. So what do they make out of pollen?
They put it in the box.
Yeah. And
they make honey out of it. It's like some kind of a food for it, for bees, and they for the rest they made honey. You
know, the thing that you're drying at home.
Oh, we can.
What do you make out of that?
We can eat it. You can put it in a tea. Dry it in the water, may I say it like that, or eat it with a honey, and it's so good for your immunity system and for health at all.
So there you go. So we'll look at some processes and how we can actually extract that. So if you've got bees at home, which in Australia you're probably allowed to have, hopefully he can walk us through just sort of how the process of how they save the pollen itself. And I think it's done here, isn't it? Yeah. So it's actually done here. So you can save it. It's got a lot of health benefits. Google it up. I mean, it costs you absolutely nothing to Google it up. If you do have bees, it'll cost you absolutely nothing to collect it as well. And you just dry it at home, and you can use it in many different ways. So what you have behind me is 32 boxes of bees. I'm sure there's a better name for this. I'm not a beekeeper, but 32 boxes, and what is done is actually made a like a little cargo box thing out of it, and underneath, so you've got these little legs behind me. So what it does is just drives this truck underneath it, unscrews the legs, the box sort of, so this container just goes onto his truck, and then he can just move it to whatever area he wants. And that's pretty much how he makes different types of honey, which actually have different price depending on the type of crop that they're targeting. And that also depends on the part of, it really depends on the part of the year that they're actually targeting as well, because obviously during winter in this particular area it gets really snowy. So you know, for maybe 4 to 5 months out of the year nothing happens. The bees are just not very active. So what they do is basically they just really stay, you know, inside those boxes, and they just periodically clean themselves out. They, you know, if a bee dies here and there, the other bees just sort of like take them out, you know, just clean up. They basically just do cleaning duties during winter. Alright guys, I want to tell you a little bit about how this structure was built and why it was built. So what he used to do is all of these boxes here, he actually used to have individual boxes that used to sit on a paddock somewhere, and he used to move those boxes around depending on the season and so forth. The problem was that he had to move each one of these boxes individually from one paddock to the next. That caused a lot of problem because he's not a hobbyist beekeeper. He doesn't do this just as a hobby. He's working towards doing this as a full-time career. That's why he's made this particular structure that you see here, and it's essentially a shed that's been made out of quite strong material. All of this is metal material with metal sidings and metal roof, as you can sort of see up here, which means that it can sustain some very harsh weathers. Now the weather here is actually quite harsh in that you'll get a lot of wind, you'll get a lot of snow, and you get a lot of bad weather in general, which means that all of these bees here need to be taken care of. And the reason that it's built is that it can, one, easily transport it from one place to the next because of the change of crops that it needs to have. Let's say here where we are at the moment is it's the season for sunflower. He's brought his bees here for a month. They'll feed on the sunflower. Then he'll take his bees somewhere else where something else is flowering in 1 month's time. This particular structure was built predominantly out of hollow hard metal, which means that it can sustain being put on a truck, and it can be taken to pretty much anywhere. I think I've been bitten actually. So it can pretty much be taken anywhere, and what that means is that all of his work is a lot easier. He can focus on creating these. He can focus on creating these boxes, and he can focus on taking the honey out of these boxes. He can focus on taking pollen out of these boxes, and he can focus on the business itself. And he doesn't have to spend weeks and months actually trying to transport these beehives from one place to the next. Okay, so we're inside this container where on each side you've got some beehives. He's got even a chair up there when he's working here, and there's quite a wide working area. I would say there's probably 1 meter here or 1200, and on this particular side he's got some nice stairs going down, which basically, you know, sort of makes it quite a relatively easy passage up and down. And then what happens is that this whole structure is sitting on 4 legs, and these legs essentially support this entire box, and as you can see how the boxes have been sort of mounted on. It provides that very easy access for the bees to get in and sort of get out. And what he does is he'll drive his truck underneath here, park his truck underneath, drop this whole platform on the truck, and then just pretty much drive off, and that's it. That's all he has to do. And then at the next place that he comes at, he just puts the legs on, lifts it up slightly with a hammer jack or something along those lines, just to lift the legs up ever so slightly, so that next time he comes in, he can just sort of put his truck underneath again, and yeah, take off and go to the next place. And that's pretty much how he's been working on his bees, and he's trying to make it as efficient as he possibly can, so that this can be a very cost-effective way of making a living without putting too much effort and without disturbing the bees too much, being able to really transport this structure from one place to the next and get the quality honey that he actually gets, and trying to really minimize the amount of time that he wastes and the cost involved in having, I suppose, such a large investment in so many beehives. So there you go. Well, I really hope you like this little overview of the setup that my sister has with beekeeping, and if you wanted to take beekeeping seriously, this is definitely something that you should consider.